Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, wassalatu wassalamu ala ashrafil anbiya'i wal mursaleen, nabiyyina Muhammadi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een. Amma ba'du, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and welcome all, especially our Umar, alhamdulillah. Allah bless you, and all those who are joining. A special day today, in the sense that it is the day in which we have been scouring the skies looking for the Hilal of Rajab. Okay, looking for the Hilal of Rajab. It is a month away from Sha'ban, and then it is a month away from Ramadan. So we were up and down the country getting messages on my phone as people were saying, whether the skies were cloudy or not cloudy, whether it was seen, not seen. And then we had two people claiming to have sighted it. And they claimed to have sighted it with binoculars in some far out place in Scotland. So we had a lengthy conversation amongst the Ulama, literally before I came on live, up till about 7:15, with regards to what type of, what was the type of binocular being used, and a little lengthy conversation about that. And then, inshallah, we got ready to go live. So at 8 p.m. on the dot, we have our, normally it's at 7:30 for our meeting that we have, the Shura of Wifaq al-Ulama, gathered together, electronically gathered together, because we are up and down the country. And we decide on whether the new month of Rajab has started or not. So I'm going to let you in to that little conversation. Yep, you're going to be privy to that conversation, inshallah, which takes place at 8 p.m. Only problem is that I will have to switch my TikTok off because I will be using that phone to make the call. But those of you who are on YouTube, you'll be able to watch it, and those of you on Facebook will be able to watch it, and those who are on Twitter will be able to watch it. Unfortunately for the TikTokers, you will have to watch it on another platform, inshallah, later on. So we do this every month, have been doing this, alhamdulillah. I've personally been involved in it for coming up to 10 years now, alhamdulillah, every month for 10 years, taking some time out to sit and discuss and deliberate so that the new month starts correctly. So inshallah, 8 p.m., we're going to do that. We had a few questions which I had not had chance to complete. I had them on a piece of paper and I did not answer them. So the first question was, and this came a few days ago, that did the Prophet ﷺ actually kill anybody, himself, because we know that if a prophet kills somebody, then that's pretty serious, being killed in as a mushrik or as a kafir is something, but then being killed in battle by the Prophet ﷺ is serious, even more so. So there wasn't an unfortunate individual. This was in the Battle of Uhud, and his name was Ubay ibn Khalaf, in which he was killed by the Prophet ﷺ. So how did it happen? Ubay ibn Khalaf had claimed that he was going to kill the Prophet ﷺ many months ago, and he was going to be the end. He was going to bring the end to the Prophet ﷺ. So during the battle, there was lots of confusion, and people started to claim, "Oh, the Prophet ﷺ is dead. The Prophet ﷺ is dead." So this completely, we know the whole Battle of Uhud, don't we? The way the two armies met. Uhud is a mountain, a huge mountain, and the two armies met. We know that there was a certain number of archers that were told to stay on the little hilltop to guard the rear guard, because of the fact that they saw that Khalid bin Walid at that time wasn't a Muslim, was going to use the Uhud as a way to come around the back of the believers in order to attack them. Now the Prophet ﷺ noticed the wing, the cavalry wing of the mushrikun, so he was cautious that these people come around and attack us from the rear and catch us off guard. So he prepared the archers not to move, come what may. Unfortunately, this is where we make ijtihad and we make errors. One group said, "Oh, no. The Prophet ﷺ said, don't move from here. Only when the battle is on. The battle is over." He didn't obviously, what are you going to do? Stay here forever? You've misunderstood him. And others said, no. He said, stay here, and we're going to stay here. And unfortunately, this confusion brought about. This is when Khalid ibn Walid came from the rear and the attack. And this is when the believers were completely lost, at a loss. And this is when their claim was made that the Prophet ﷺ has been killed. So it was at this time that this chap Ubay ibn Khalaf was coming to attack the Prophet al-Islam. The Prophet al-Islam takes a spear and he casts a spear and strikes him in the neck, and then he dies as a result of that. There are no other sound narrations that I have come across in which the Prophet ﷺ was directly, physically involved in the killing of somebody else. So that's the one that has come to me. The next question that was asked a few days ago, or maybe a couple of days ago, was regards to the women's feet in Salah. That are they considered as aura? So the short answer is that no, they are not considered as aura. What do we mean by that? So we know, for example, that the female body itself, the Prophet ﷺ has considered the full female body to be the aura. And we know there are narrations which say that he pointed to the face and pointed to the hands and said, except these. That's why some fuqaha say, okay, he did not say except the feet. So the feet must be part of the aura. So there is ikhtilaf amongst the ulama. It's not a singular position. It's not a one position. However, obviously, I'm not here to give you the full disagreements, agreements, and all the rest of it. For now, it's just mainly to bring to your understanding that the position which has been adopted is that the feet are not considered as part of aura. Having said that, it does say that if you are out and about, and nowadays, obviously, so in Salah, obviously, normally a woman, when she prays Salah at home. And at home, she's going to be praying Salah in her private quarters. And the people that are going to be around are most likely just going to be her husband. Probably her son won't even come into that room because obviously it's the main bedroom. But even if he did, it's her son. And but when a woman goes out, we know now society is, unfortunately becoming more and more perverse. And therefore, even some people will find women's feet attractive or have a fetish, a foot fetish as it's referred to. So in those kind of cases, it is better for a woman then to at least cover the great majority of her foot, even if it doesn't mean that she covers the whole foot. So the fuqaha have said that. So that's the foot one. The other one was an associate, somebody who I go to the gym or I meet at the gym. I don't go to the gym with him because he lives in his house and I live in my house. So and he asked me this question, and he says, brother, I was on Facebook and I came across one of your lives. And I said, alhamdulillah. And he said, I wanted to ask a question if you could answer it during your live. And unfortunately, I was supposed to do that yesterday, but it slipped my mind. That's why I put this piece of paper in front of me today, so I would not forget. And I was literally going to put it to the side when I started. And then I thought, oh no, here I go again. So the question he asked is, he's recently got married. May Allah put khair in his marriage. And when he got married, there is a cultural practice, particularly within Pakistan, but it's an Indian subcontinent thing in which they put flowers around your, over your neck. So as a kind of way of, I don't know, showing respect, honoring you, whatever. And he was a little bit confused about that because as to he was trying to find out what is the underlying issue. Why is this being done? What's the purpose of this? So hence the reason he asked the question that is this sound, because he goes, I've seen it, for example, being put around idols. So I didn't want it to do something which was shirk, for example, without realizing it. So the answer to that question is that it's not considered as shirk and it is not impermissible, meaning it is permissible to do so. The reasoning is that this is just a way of honoring somebody. So in the Indian subcontinent, when somebody comes, a guest or somebody comes from far away, or an honorable person comes, or somebody of high rank or high status, then what the people will do is just to meet and greet them, they would put flowers around their neck. And that was all. It is not just associated with Hindu culture. You then find, obviously, that people who worship idols also want to show respect and honor their idols. So they also put flowers around the idol's neck and over the idols. Now, they're not doing that necessarily because this is an idolic practice. All they're doing that for is in order to show honor and respect to the idol. So the garlanding is showing honor and respect. We even see garlanding when animals were put aside, either those that were going to be taken for Hajj, meaning for slaughter. Let me just send this. I don't know why my hand's still frozen up here. So either those animals that were being garlanded with flowers, sometimes they put slippers around them, superficially cut and spread the blood on the hump. And the reason they would do that is would recognize that these are animals for slaughter, and because these are animals set aside for slaughter, they would not mount them, they would not milk them if they could be milked, and obviously they wouldn't mess around with them, abuse them, they would just let them be, because they know these animals have been set aside for slaughter. So in that way, those animals were garlanded as well, and so that was a practice. So therefore, there is nothing wrong if you meet somebody, or for example, if somebody greets you and places flowers around your neck or something of that sort. So alhamdulillah, that covers the outstanding questions. That's that done. I can put that to one side, and now I can start to look at some of the questions here. So wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi iman. Hope you're well, inshallah. Alhamdulillah. I am lovely to see me. That's good. And I'm lovely to read you, shall I say, inshallah. And wa alaikum salam to everybody else. Would it be correct to say Allah created creation to know Allah? There is a discussion that is discussed amongst the people of tasawwuf, amongst the people of zuhud, amongst the people of spiritual reformation, amongst the people of sort of spiritual focus, that said that was the reason Allah created, was so that man would know Allah. In reality, Allah has mentioned in the Quran that I created mankind and jinn, or I did not create mankind and jinn except to worship me. So because we have an unequivocal verse in the Quran, which is mutawatir, which is absolutely unequivocally from Allah, verbatim, then we say that that's the reason why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created humans. Now, then we find, okay, that's why Allah created humans. Why did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala create? So that's the short answer. That's what we were created for. So going into more depth, then, okay, what about the rest of creation? What is the rest of creation for? If the jinn and the insan, the humans, are created to worship Allah, if that's their only maqsad, if that's their only purpose, and the rest is only out of necessity, everything else we do is out of necessity. It is not, and nothing else is required. The only thing which is required from us is to worship Allah. But in order to stay alive, we have to eat. In order to stay alive, we have to drink. In order to stay alive, we have to sleep. So therefore, we have to do those three things in order to stay alive so that we can worship Allah. Okay. Similarly, in order to carry on the human race, especially the Muslims, we had a question the other day from a sister who says, is it sinful not to have children? So, and the reason, there's a need for us to procreate. Why do we need to procreate? In order to keep people on the planet to worship Allah. So if you notice, all four things, eating, drinking, sleeping, procreating, all of these things are to do with worshiping Allah. Indirectly. If I don't eat, I die, I stop worshiping Allah. If I don't drink, I die, I stop worshiping Allah. If I don't sleep, I die, I stop worshiping Allah. If I don't have children, we die out and we stop worshiping Allah. So in all those cases, that's the asl. Anything else, okay, now can I just walk into a store and buy and take some food and walk out? No. Can I walk into a store and grab some drink and walk out? No. Which means I have to earn a living now in order to eat, to drink, in order to worship. Okay. Similarly, sleep. Can I just go sleep on the road? No, because it's cold. So I want to sleep inside a house. Oh, so I need a house now, which has a bed in it, which is warm, in order so I can sleep, in order that I can worship Allah. So now these are like tertiarily connected to worshiping Allah. These are secondary connected to worship Allah, and these are tertiary connected. Do I need to work 17 hours a day? No. Why? Because I can work 7 hours a day, I guess, or 6 hours a day, or 5 hours a day, and that will be enough for me to buy food, to get drink, to get a bed in a house, and that's all I need. Then obviously there's other things. I need to travel to get to my job, so now I need a car. So do you understand how everything has to come back to worshipping Allah? Everything has to come back. If it doesn't, it might be 2 steps away, it might be 3 steps away, it might be 4 steps away. I need a laptop. What do you need a laptop for? To do my work. Why do you need to work for? So I can earn some money. Why do you need to earn some money for? So I can buy some food. Why do you need to buy some food for? So I can eat. Why do you need to eat for? So I can worship Allah. Then it's all right. So no matter how many steps away you are, and the more steps you are away, the more danger it can potentially get, because that's when the nafs kicks in, and nafs tries to trick you and give you this idea that you're actually doing it to worship Allah, but in essence you've kind of lost your way a little bit. And then the means becomes the purpose instead of the actual purpose, or the goal. The means becomes the goal rather than the goal being the goal, if that makes sense. Please kindly, would it be correct to say, please kindly explain how to advise someone who gives birthday gifts? As I said, you can gift. The gifting is not the problem, but rather celebrating a birthday, there's nothing to congratulate. Okay, there's nothing to congratulate. So if somebody is really eager on giving you birthday gifts, then just say, look, give me a week later, a month later, give me a week before. It doesn't really matter. I don't celebrate birthdays. So at least they're aware of it. They might be doing it because they don't want to offend you. So at least if you can, in a non-offensive way, have that conversation with them, then it all will be good. What's the point in carrying on this kind of drama where you feel uncomfortable that they're giving you gifts, and they feel uncomfortable because they think, if I don't give you gifts, you'll be upset that, oh, she gives gifts to my other nieces and nephews, but she don't give gifts to my children. So she might be feeling a little bit paranoid and thinking, you know what, I best gift her children as well, because she's going to get upset. So you don't know the under circumstances with regards to that. So there's nothing wrong with gifting. It's only that when we associate it with birthday, we're saying we're celebrating, but there's nothing to celebrate with regards to a birthday. It's not an achievement when you live for another year. What's the achievement in that? What did you do to live another year? There's nothing to celebrate, because that's what it is. It's a celebration. When we say ikhtilaf, difference of opinion, how should the awam, common man, take it as that? Meaning people give their personal opinion deliberation on the points. As you know, that social media has given a platform to anyone to give their opinion. Some people are great at market study, so they get their airtime that others who are not scholars but having debates on faith-related matters. Please explain the difference between conversation or ulama giving verdicts. Very good point. So when I speak about ikhtilaf, I'm not saying that ikhtilaf is something that we can not necessarily exploit, that we can use. I'm only sharing that with you so you are aware that if you do hear something else, then there is some difference of opinions within scholars. And when I say scholars, I'm not talking about the likes of me. I'm talking about the fuqaha, the people who wrote books like those behind me. I'm speaking of them, that they had differences of opinions amongst themselves. We are irrelevant. People like me, all we're doing is we're just telling you what they said. That's it. I'm not saying something from my back pocket or from my knowledge. I'm telling you from what they said. Okay. So when it comes to us people exploring ikhtilaf is irrelevant to us. Okay. Ikhtilaf is irrelevant to us. It's just an academic issue that I'm sharing with you so that you are aware of it. When it comes to practice, as I've said time and time again, you need to follow a mufti, a reputable person, because that's the only choice you have. After that, you have no choice. You will listen to what he says, and that's it. The only choice you have is who you decide to follow. Then it comes down to what your rationale is for following that person. Are you following that person because he says nice, sweet, fluffy stuff to you, like marshmallows, and he never tells you off, or he never criticizes you for not making any effort, and all he's saying is nice, flowery things to you? Oh, you're doing great, keep going, and all that. And there's none, oh, you shouldn't do that, that's impermissible. Or you should be wearing a headscarf, sister, that's impermissible. Or brother, you should be keeping a beard, that's impermissible. Or brother, you should be praying salah, that's impermissible. But all he's saying is, just keep trying, brother, it's good. Because when you look at the life of the Prophet ﷺ, that's not all he did. He didn't just encourage. In fact, you'll find most of his lectures were trying to do islah of people, rectifying their poor behavior rather than commending them on their positive behavior. So that's something that we need to bear in mind. Social media, yes, absolutely, it does give a platform to everybody, and the common person may not differentiate. Before, there was a time where you noticed that a scholar, let me just send this. Before, you'd notice that a scholar would have a long beard, maybe wear sort of Islamic dress, may have a hat on his head, may have an amama or something like that. So you'd say, oh, that looks like a scholar. But there's many people now who will just pretend to dress like one, even though they may not be a scholar. Secondly, you'll find that people now feel quite comfortable going to people who have either no beards or very small beards, or they will happily go and sit with people who aren't, looking like a religious scholar, and just hear what they've got to say and just say, oh, this works well for me, because it's anybody's and everybody's platform. It's if somebody is truly a scholar, why would he not bring the life of the Prophet ﷺ in his life? Why wouldn't he? He would be madly in love with the Prophet ﷺ, and if he is madly in love with the Prophet ﷺ, he would try his utmost to be like him as much as possible. Not saying that it's fard or not fard or there's permissibility for this. The ulama don't act on permissibility. The ulama act on taqwa. That's what needs to be understood. So, unfortunately, for some of us, we may be misguided by looking at people, seeing them in a certain way, and thinking, oh, this guy works for me. But really, in essence, what we're doing is we're following our own nafs, we're following our own desire. And that's where the problem comes up. I think I missed a question from Harun, so my apologies. Let me just pick that up. He said, and also that what is the correct way to do istibara? Now, istibara is to ensure that and this is particularly for males because of the physical anatomy. For females, urinating is a pretty straightforward procedure. There's very little pipe work, for want of a better phrase, and therefore think of a female urinating like a cup. As soon as you turn the cup upside down, everything that's within the in the cup has gone. Okay, everything has gone. Think of the try not to sound too crude, but it's a mas'ala, and we need to teach the mas'ala. And think of the male as a hose pipe. So even though you turn the tap off, that doesn't necessarily mean that all the water at the hose pipe has gone. So with a male, he needs to ensure that the urine that has left his bladder potentially has now also been emitted from his body. And how does he do that? And similarly, sometimes even though the bladder has emptied, the bladder still leaks a little bit slowly. Okay, it can be in extreme cold. It can do that. It can also be at the time when a person has held his urine for quite a while and he's been, really bursting to go, and then he's held it, and now he's gone. And now obviously there's the bladder's sort of like half emptied, and then it stops and it needs to empty more. It could be as we get older, our muscles around our bladder become weaker. It could be numerous reasons why, particularly for the male, it becomes a problem. So why is it an issue? Well, the issue is the Prophet ﷺ was traveling once with his companions, and he asked them to stop. And he said, can you hear that noise? And they said, what noise? We can't hear anything. So he asked, he goes, are there graves over there, or words to that effect? And then one of the companions said, yes, there are graves over there. So he descended from his mount, went across. He grabbed a branch from a tree, split it into two, and placed it in there. And he says that I pray that whilst this remains moist, because obviously a tree is eventually going to die, whilst it remains moist, that the people in these graves are forgiven because they are being punished. And when further he elaborates and says one is being punished because they used to carry tales, gossip, take one thing from one person to another. And the other person, they used to not protect themselves from urinating. Okay. Now, this is punishment in the grave because a person didn't take the right steps to protect themselves from urinating. So istibra, it really depends on you and your own body. Everybody knows their own body. For some people, the way istibra works is to take the left thigh and push it up against roughly where the bladder is, to kind of like squeeze the bladder. Other people prefer to stand and walk. Other people prefer to cough. Other people prefer to take some tissue and put it into their lower garments near their anatomy and walk around for a little bit, 5-10 minutes. And when they feel that everything that needs to be emptied or dripped has come out, they throw the tissue away and now they make wudu. Each person will look at their own body and what works for them. Okay, what works for them. There's no fixed method. All that we are instructed is to perform istibara. There's no fixed method as to how that should be achieved. It really depends what works for you. So we've covered the questions on these on the social media point. Are we allowed to name plants at home? I don't see why not. Who's going to find out whether you've named them or not? I guess as long as you don't, there's no problem. You can name them if you want. Not everything is about permissibility and impermissibility. Naming plants, there's many things which are mubah, yani, and there's no kalam on it. There's no statement on it. Because most of the actions, there's no statement. Most actions are, am I allowed to sit? Am I allowed to drink coffee out of a mug? Am I allowed to use a microphone? Am I allowed to have a desk? There's so many things which are mubah. Okay, am I allowed to use paper? Am I allowed to use a red pen? It's mainly on beliefs and practices, particularly aimed at the way we engage with the world around us, and also that. So this is not unnecessarily a matter that would be of a concern. So debate on faith-related matters. Please explain the difference between conversation and ulama given. Yeah, when we do, maybe I just can pick up on this point. So when we do watch something, it's now becoming entertainment for us. So it's when we're watching even ulama, it's entertainment. Are we there? Are we learning from them? Are we going to put into practice what we're learning from them? That's what's the key. So when we sit in a gathering, is it just because we sat in that gathering because food is going to be served after, so we're going to have to sit in this gathering? Or are you sat in this gathering to learn? And when it comes to social media, it's just gupshup. People are just talking, they're passing time. And then they might just start a discussion or a debate about something. Oh, did you hear what so-and-so said? What do you think? Is that permissible? What do you think? What do you think? It doesn't matter what you think. It's irrelevant. It's irrelevant. What's key is, what is the position on this? What is the legal position on this? And how should we act? What is the correct way to do Istinja after stool? Should we wipe then use water? Yeah, so the normal method should be most of our stool, because we have quite a wet diet, we have quite a hydrated diet, then what will happen is that our stool will be, will have sufficient moisture in it. It'll have sufficient water in it, unless obviously we're constipated, and then that's a bigger problem. So when we do pass stool, naturally the orifice is also going to have some feces on it. It's not going to be as though the feces is just going to drop out of the anatomy without necessarily marking the end, especially when we tighten muscles. So what should be done first is to remove the solid mass. The best way to remove the solid mass, as you said, is using a tissue. Okay, that's the best way. And what tends to help sometimes is to slightly moisten the tissue. When you slightly moisten the tissue, then what that will mean is that will capture a lot more of the feces on the exterior of the anatomy, rather than if you use a dry tissue, because that's not necessarily going to pick things up. And so that's what I suggest is maybe a moist tissue. And then after that is to wash. Okay, and when you wash, then you're washing to the point where you feel satisfied that there is no more feces left on your posterior. Now, obviously, wait for the waters to stop, because you've just washed your nether region, there's going to be water running off. So you let the water run off. Once the water has run off, now you can stand, obviously, wash your hands with soap, and now you can carry on. Why has Islam given us the right to marry our cousins when now science has shown us that can come with many health complications for the child, especially South Asians? Just because something is permissible doesn't mean it's something that should be done. Okay. So for instance, the Sharia has given permissibility for a man to marry up to 4 wives. That does not mean that a man has to go marry up to 4 wives. It gives the permissibility. So why does it give the permissibility? Because remember, Islam is for all day and for all ages. Let's just say there is a place somewhere on the planet from now where there's only two families and there's nobody else but only two families. And one brother has boys and girls, and his sister also has children, boys and girls. Who will those children marry? Now, if we had made cousin marriages haram, which is what is possibly being suggested, they can never get married. Like, for example, if we lived in a society in which the ratio of women to men was about 5-1. You lived in a society in which the ratio was 5-1. What do we do now? Does only one woman get married and the other four women just live without husbands? What if they start plotting to kill that woman who's married to that man so that they can get the man? What if there's illegal intimacy and he starts to have illegal relationships as they also want to be physically looked after? So you see, the Sharia is for all times and all places. Just because it is for all times and all places doesn't mean that we have to always act on that. So if a person said, oh, the science seems to suggest that cousin marriage is problematic, then the ulama will say, okay, you don't have to marry your cousin. There's so many women out there, marry somebody else. So remember, the key point here is just because there's permissibility of something doesn't mean that we have to do that thing. I heard that there is a place in Saudi we have been advised not to visit by the Prophet. Is this true? I believe it's called Al-Ula. Not that I've come across. Nothing comes to mind. When you say Saudi, remember Saudi didn't exist in the time of the Prophet ﷺ. It was referred to as Najd. So Najd was towards the east. Yemen was south, because the Prophet ﷺ is closer to the western border, western boundary near the sea. And therefore Najd, that was referred to as Najd, and Yemen was down south. So I do not recall of a place that rings a bell. So if you do find something, please share and I will look into it, inshallah. What about smell? What about smell? Does having smell after washing stool away mean our wudu is not done? Oh, I see. This is going back to the one at the top. Well, if somebody, the only time you're going to smell is either that one hasn't cleaned themselves properly, that's why one is going to smell, or that one has let air out. Okay, and if one has let air out, then that obviously nullifies wudu. So if you've not made wudu yet, then it's not a problem. Even if even if we've pulled our trousers up and we're walking towards the sink to make wudu, and then we let some air out, it doesn't matter because we've not started our wudu yet. But if we've made our wudu, then obviously that's a problem. Why? Because now it will nullify our wudu. So we need to make sure that our wudu is complete. Our wudu is repeated, rather, if we have not performed wudu yet. Okay, excellent. We've covered most of the questions on here. I'm just going to jump on to the questions which have come through our Dar Liftar. Please carry on posting questions, but I just need to go through them, and then we are at least in a good place. There we go. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Is this recipe halal? Ooh, people sending me recipes. I need to try it out. As it says, you have to soak the grains in water until they ferment, then cook on a tawa. Recipe is below. Bali urad dal dosa recipe. 1 cup of barley, half a cup of urad dal, which are split black lentils in case you didn't know, and half a cup of methi seeds. Soak above for 6 hours. Drain and blend in mixer with 1/4 of a cup of water. Place in a bowl and ferment in a warm place for 12 hours. Add salt and mix well. Cook on tawa. So when it comes to alcohol created in situ, then there is permissibility to consume. One of a common piece of food in which there's a fermentation process is, let's see if anybody knows the answer. What is one of the most common food that all of us have in our kitchens, right? that uses the fermentation process? I'm going to give you a minute to see if you can answer it. And no Googling. Ah, mashallah. Waqas Khan. Oh, is that the old Doctor Waqas Khan? That's absolutely correct. Yes, 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 yes. Bread. Okay. Oh, everyone's coming in, mashallah. Vinegar, yeast. I was thinking of bread, and he knows that I was thinking of bread because he knows why I was thinking. So, yes, bread is the answer. Bread is the answer, which has anything up to, I think it's 1.5%, if memory serves me correctly, has 1.5% alcohol in it, but we are permitted to consume it. So when it's in situ, what I mean by in situ is a scientific term, which means alcohol is formed during a process of something else. Then that is permissible to consume. So there would be no issue there whatsoever with that question. If somebody was eating this methi dal, whatever it is, Bali urad dal, I'm probably pronouncing it wrong as well, with my English accent, my Yorkshire accent, instead of a bit of a Desi accent I should be using. Khair. Reference the hadith, eating at a table where alcohol is served, prohibition. Reference this hadith. What proximity does this cover when sitting down to eat whilst traveling? Example, in a motorway service station, at hotels when staying, in shopping malls. Does it matter if the alcohol bar is closed or open? So when this hadith makes reference to not sharing a dastakhan, not sharing a table spread, having alcohol on it, is in reference to that actual table spread. Meaning that if you're sat on a table in a restaurant or you're sat in a table somewhere and you haven't ordered any alcohol and there's no alcohol being served from where you are, then there's nothing wrong with that because you've not invited somebody or nobody's drinking that from you in that particular place. When it comes to eating in places where alcohol is served, then it's best to avoid. Okay, there are so many places that we can eat at now. That do we really need to go eat at restaurants that serve alcohol, or do we really need to go to places of eating bar, wherever that there's a bar? Okay, so we shouldn't go. It's like then what's the difference? Why not go to a pub and order a chip butty or something, and drink a cola or drink some orange juice or whatever? So we shouldn't frequent places where alcohol is being served as the primary kind of environment, like a pub, like a club, like a place which is, of that nature. Like I said, there's so many alternatives there. So that's something that we should avoid. And last question, which is on the Markaz al-Ifta wal Qada, is the question of, can a person tie their hair back when they're performing Salah? So we know, for example, the short answer is no. The more detailed answer is that we know, for example, that the Prophet ﷺ permitted men to grow their hair up to their shoulders. We know that there is a no-go zone for women and for men, and that no-go zone is between the shoulder and the shoulder blade at the back on the back. Okay, the bit where those two protruding bones are. So similar to level to about sort of the chest area. And that area, no one can go in. The women can't cut their hair shorter, and the man can't cut and let his hair go longer. So he stops at his shoulder, she stops at the shoulder blade, and nobody goes into this no-go zone. So there are times, obviously, when a man needs to tie his hair back, he's doing work, whatever, it's getting in his face. He's leaning over, he's doing something really important, and the hair's coming in his way. So he can tie his hair back. There's nothing wrong with that. But when he stands to perform Salah, then all parts of his body must be submissive to Allah. All parts of his body must be submissive to Allah. His clothes must be submissive to Allah. His body must be submissive to Allah. And all his body parts are submissive to Allah. So when a person ties his hair, then it's a bit like a horse's tail in that it sticks up. Okay. So in a way, it stands against this submission concept. So we know, for example, that a Sahabi untied the hair of one of the other companions who had his hair tied in Salah. And obviously he wasn't too pleased about it. When he turned his face afterwards, he informed him that it's impermissible to do so. So the hair should be loose when a person is performing salah. It should not be tied. Usually for a woman, before anybody says, oh, what about a woman? A woman's hair is naturally, because it's long, it does not stand unless she ties it as a very high ponytail, which she shouldn't be doing anyway, because then we have this tashbih of that one where it mentions that the head stands up like a camel's hump. Okay, it's not referring to her, but it's tashbih of that. It's similar to it. So she should have, where she can tie her hair from, the back of the head, and because it's long, it will naturally just fall because the weight of the hair will pull it down. Whereas a man obviously doesn't have much hair, so even when he ties a ponytail at the back of his head, it still stands. It won't naturally fall, and that's what we're talking about with natural falling. Okay, yes. Are we allowed to eat nutmeg? Okay. Nutmeg. I'm assuming nutmeg. I need to know. I don't see why there would be a problem with it. Nutmeg. These are the questions. Answers that I'm assuming: grapes, bread, yeast, vinegar. What about alcohol-free drinks? So alcohol-free drinks. There is. I didn't start this, did I? Goodness me. Alcohol-free drinks. Okay, so when it comes to alcohol-free drinks, then if we argue that they don't have any alcohol in them, then the alcohol is not the issue there. This is again what we referred to earlier, which is tashbih. Now there is, and so I'll explain now since I mentioned it a couple of times. Tashbih is when something is like something. Okay, something is like something, and therefore, because it's assimilate, it's like something. We have to avoid that thing because it's like something which is haram. So when something is haram and something is like it, then we should avoid that. So when it comes to alcohol-free drinks, the question arises is why are we why are we, what a question, Maulana Ibrahim. When it comes to alcohol-free drinks, the question then comes is that why are we drinking alcohol-free drinks? Okay. Why are we drinking alcohol-free drinks when there's so many other drinks available, pop drinks, fruit drinks and whatever? Why are we specifically going to this alcohol-free drink? So therefore there is a kind of desire, there is a kind of a want to drink these drinks. The question comes, why? And because they are similar to, there was a big sort of push on something called alco pops, where they made pop drinks with a very, very small amount of alcohol in them. And what happens is it's just a way of introducing alcoholic drinks to young people. So, when young people were drinking them, then they start to move down that road. So this is something which, as Muslims, we would avoid and we would not drink. Would you be able to recommend Quran Tafsir books? I already have Tafsir Ibn Kathir. I want to get another one. Oh, goodness me. You could get Mufti Taqi Saab's Tafsir. You could get Tafsir Uthmani. You could get, they're the ones that I would say. I'm assuming you're looking in English. I struggle with English books because I don't have many English books. So I can't really help too much with English books. But you just need to make sure that it's a sound scholar, reputable scholar, somebody who the Ulama hold in high esteem and high value. And then, yes, you may get his books, because obviously it's very dangerous if you get somebody who's unfortunately a little bit wayward, as they say. Ma'arif al-Quran, that's the word I was looking for, actually. Thank you, Zach Bits or Blitz or whatever it is. I need to go check my eyes out. Is playing Monopoly allowed? Okay, is playing Monopoly allowed? I think rather than answering all questions of different types of games, I did say at the outset that anything which involves chance, anything which involves die, then those should be avoided. When a child under puberty performs a good act, does he get the reward on his record? How about sins? Do they go on his record also? So when it comes to a child under puberty, then the legality of the law does not apply to them. Okay. Yani, meaning that they are not held accountable by the law. This is similar for a person who's asleep, and is similar for a person who's unfortunately is not in a good mental state. So these three types of people are such that the law does not apply to them. But if they perform a good deed knowing what they're doing, okay, then the key thing is knowing what they're doing. If they know what they're doing, that this is an act, a good act that I am performing. And what we need to understand now is that before, children used to be, the thing is, strangely enough, is we are childish, or we raise our children childish in some ways, and we raise them as adults in other ways. So when it comes to responsibilities, we raise them like children. And when it comes to rights, we raise them like adults. So, this is a very skewed way of raising our children. So we need to be, very careful about that. That we do this balanced way. So when a child would be under puberty in days gone by, then he would be kind of a little sort of innocent, literally, of what goes on around them. Nowadays, we give phones to young children, 7, 8, 9 years old, 10 years old, and they watch all and sundry on these phones. So you're now hearing of 7-year-old kills a 3-year-old, murder being carried out by children. And even 12-year-olds, 13-year-olds, it's becoming regular news now. And you're thinking, subhanAllah, how can a 12-year-old kill somebody? What was going through their head? So now there's going to be an element where wherever Sharia is applied, which is not necessarily in many places, where that needs to be now needs to be factored in as to how aware is this child. So let's go back to the question. So when it comes to, does he get reward? Yes, that child will get reward. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does not turn a person away for the good work that they do. And secondly, what about sins? Well, sins, they've been forgiven, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has a very positive way of dealing with people. So he mentions in a hadith that if a person has a bad thought, then nothing is written against him. If he doesn't do that bad thought, then he gets a reward, in fact. And if he does do that bad thought, he gets one bad misdeed written against him. And if a person has a good thought, then they get rewarded for it. And if they actually carry out that good thought, they get up to 10 times reward for it. So you'll notice that Allah is not fair in the sense of rewarding. He rewards more than he punishes. Okay, so he rewards more than he punishes. So therefore, with that kind of understanding, we will say in this case that yes, he will get reward, and also the person who educated this child to perform this good deed. So whether that was a parent, whether that was, and it might be that the parent did it indirectly. So the parent sent the child to a madrasa, the parent sent a child to a masjid, and when the child went to a madrasa or masjid, the parent paid the fees, the parent dropped them off, picked them up, and yet they didn't have the skills themselves to be able to inculcate and educate that child. But at least they were the means for that child to become understanding of their deen. And now this child, mashallah, because they've learned that, they're reciting Quran, they're praying Salah, waghera. So the parent will also get reward, the ustad will get the reward, the people behind the building of that masjid or madrasa will get reward, because like I said, Allah's bounty is endless. He will reward every single person in the chain, from actual person directly, as in the teacher, all the way to the people behind it, the trustees of the institute that is running it, if they're making the right decisions, the masjid itself, whoever founded the masjid, whoever gave a pound towards the running of the masjid, the ustads of the teacher. You could go on and on and on. It's so complicated just to sit here and try to find out how many people are involved when it comes to educating a child. There's so many people involved when it comes to educating a child, because it might be that the child's grandfather raised the child's father in a good way, which meant the father had the necessary tarbiyah now to raise his children. So you could have this long chain of people getting reward, long chain of people getting reward, and it also branches out. So there's no limit to that, and it will go on their record, and obviously they will get the thawab for it, and as a consequence, get the benefit of it in the akhirah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Maulana Ibrahim was dropping bombs. Does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decide our future? If he does, then why are we responsible for our actions? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates our future, and he has written our taqdeer. Bear in mind that the concept of future does not exist with Allah. The concept of future exists for us. Time is a creation. Time is not outside of creation. So time is something which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created. So for us, because we see things linearly and we see things chronologically, we see things that this thing happens after the other. But for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, there is no yesterday, tomorrow, the day after, last year. It's all there. And now for us to even conceptualize that, it's too difficult. How do you conceptualize no time? You know, what does that mean? You know, we don't even know what that means. How can yesterday, tomorrow, and today all be happening at the same time? There you see, I can't even help it. I've even said it. Because even by me constructing the concept, I'm using time, which we're not supposed to be using. So how are we going to understand the future yesterday, 10 years ago, 20 years from now, when we don't really understand the concept? So let's understand it in this way. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala creates all actions. We choose those actions. Okay. We choose those actions. So right now, you know, there are so many options available to me. You know, I can drink this coffee, I can throw it on the floor, I can smash it out the window, I can throw it out the door, I can throw it at the screen, I can not drink anymore. You know, how many options do I have? You know, 50, 100, 150, Allahu Alam. I'm not going to sit and count them all. You get the point I'm making. All those options exist for me. They've all been created. Let me just send that. I now choose one. That's my choice. I choose one now. I choose either to do something good or I choose to do something bad. That's where I'm being assessed at this point, right now. Not, oh, does Allah know what I'm going to do now? And if He knows now, but what is now? You see, there you go. I'm already putting a time constraint. What does now mean? For Allah, what does now mean? There is no time for Allah. So now is irrelevant. So, and I think that's why when we get these questions and we kind of trap ourselves in this kind of, you know, rabbit hole, you know, following the rabbit down the hole, it just leads to more and more confusion. So we are responsible for actions because we choose them, and because we choose them, and that it was our choice. Right now, I'm making a choice. Like right now, I'm telling you, the choice I'm making is I'm going to take a sip of that coffee. There you go. That was my choice. Did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala know that's the choice I was going to make? Of course He was, because there's no such thing as time. Okay, for Him. There's no such thing as time for Him. So, you know, maybe I'm getting very deep now. So let's just park that time thing up for a little bit before we go into a warp. Is sighting the crescent with binoculars valid to start the new Islamic month? Subhanallah, Maulana Ibrahim dropping the bomb. I knew he would do that. You know who were you put up to this? Because we had a meeting prior to coming on live for an hour in which I was sharing some stuff on our group, Shura group, and one of the chaps on our Shura group said, "Musab, I'm going to join your Fiqhour, and I'm going to put that question to you." And I said, "If you do, I'll tell you off." So he didn't come on because I can't see his name unless he is on and he's not saying anything. And then you pose exactly that question that he was going to ask me. Subhanallah. Now, either this is a remarkable coincidence, or this was always meant to be asked to me, or you've been put up to it. So I'm not sure which one it is. But hey, guess what? We've run out of time. Oh, so unfortunate. Wouldn't it have been so great to answer that particular question? We've only got a couple of minutes to go. So what I need to do, people, is inshallah, as I said, I'm going to keep it live because I'm going to ring in our hotline in which we have our Shura meeting. And in the Shura meeting, we're going to discuss, you'll only hear me speak, so you're not going to hear the other ulama speak. So that at least you see, so what is it that I'm part of? There's an organization called Wifaqul Ulama. So whilst you're waiting, search them on the net, www.wifaqululama.co.uk, I think. And one of the tasks that we have is to initiate or declare the start of a new month. Now we are hours away or minutes away, arguably, from declaring whether Rajab has started or not. And as we know, after Rajab is Sha'ban, and after Sha'ban is Ramadan. We do this every month. Alhamdulillah, I've been fortunate enough to be doing this now for nearly 10 years. I think maybe I've only missed a handful of times where I've not been available, and that's been because I've been teaching. So today, obviously, you're going to sit in, so to speak. That conversation is very quick, okay, because we've already had preliminary conversations. So this meeting is only to make a decision. It is not to have the conversations, because we have those preliminary conversations prior to coming onto this call that we have at 8 p.m. and making the final decision. So all you will see now is the final decision. So it'll be over in minutes. Okay, it'll be over before you know it. Not very painful. And once we've done that, obviously, then we will go off air, inshallah. But we will be, as I say every day, inshallah, we will be back tomorrow, same time, same place. And if I've not answered some of your questions, then please feel free to save them, copy them somewhere, and ask me them again, inshallah, tomorrow, Saturday at 7 p.m. On the normal platforms. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to keep the Facebook going. I'm going to keep the Twitter going, and I'm going to keep the YouTube going, but I'm going to come off TikTok now because I need my phone. All right, that's done. To get the number.
Welcome and thank you for choosing freeconferencecall.com. You're helping people around the world communicate for free. Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign. If you are the host, press star now. Please wait, and you will be joined into the conference. Please announce yourself.
Amjad. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Hazrat. Ji, alhamdulillah. So just to pre-warn you, we are still live on our fiqh hour. Wa alaikum assalam, sir. Ji, we are. Are you watching me? Somebody asked that. Surprisingly, somebody asked that question, Abdulaziz. I was wondering if you were behind it. The question was, is sighting the crescent moon with binoculars valid to start the new Islamic month? I thought, oh, that's coincidental, isn't it? Any part you played in it? Okay, you can't take credit for it. Chalo, inshallah. Everybody here? Everybody here? Assalamu alaikum, Qari sahab. Ji, wa alaikum assalam wa Hazrat. Ji, bismillah. Ji, bismillah. So any sighting local? That's right. We took the Shahada earlier. And sighting was via binoculars? Bilkul, bilkul. And Imkan was there? Imkan was there. An hour after sunset, Jazakumullah. And any khabar from outside of the UK? Almost everywhere. And from our partners? Zambia, Union, South Africa, Morocco. Yeah, alhamdulillah. So Faisla on here, that the first of Rajab is yeah, alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullah. Yeah, yeah. जी हाँ, जी जी। तो इस पर फैसला करेंगे इंशाल्लाह। तो आज ही रजब है, ठीक है जी। हाँ, तो मैं अभी इसलिए कि लाइव चल रहा है ना, तो मैं इंशाल्लाह आई मैसेज यू आफ्टर। ठीक है जी, ओके 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 जी, इंशाल्लाह ठीक है जी, ओके 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 ओके, सलाम। So in case you didn't catch it, so we had two witness statements that I and my colleagues took earlier at about 5 o'clock, in which they had sighted the moon in Bersnick or something like that, Scotland. And so we had that, but obviously a sighting is not a declaration. Witnessing is just evidence. The declaration is made by the ulama, as you just saw there. This is unfortunately what we hear so many times, where people just turn their TVs on and they see something going on in Saudi Arabia and they decide themselves that it is Eid, or they decide themselves it's Ramadan. People cannot decide on their own. The ulama make that decision. We cannot decide what time Maghrib is. We cannot decide what time Fajr is. We cannot determine what time Isha is. We let the ulama. That's their responsibility. That's their job. So similarly, that's their job. So alhamdulillah, with Wifaq ulama, it's a very thorough process. So we had 15 minutes of taking the Shahada. Then after 15 minutes of taking the Shahada, we have numerous partners in the African continent, in the Asian continent, and also we have a global network. So we start getting announcements from Australia. So we knew from Australia hours ago that they had actually sighted the moon. But obviously we cannot go by a declaration from Australia. We wait for the sighting to occur within our own time zone. And then once we have discussed at length, I told you before we started about the fact that they use binoculars to sight it. Once we had that conversation, then obviously we deliberated over it for nearly half an hour. I was nearly late to come on to my live. And once that's done, then we gather all the evidence, and all it is now is just a formality, but it is a religious formality in which a decision, a decree is given. Like you cannot act on positions without a fatwa. You cannot act upon the start of Rajab without that fatwa. So that fatwa is coming from the ulama, that this is now declared as the first of Rajab. So alhamdulillah, first of Rajab has started. And yet people who follow other countries to now, they do not know what the date is, whether it's the first of Rajab or not, because Rajab actually starts, or the new month starts after Maghrib. It does not start the next morning. It starts after Maghrib. So therefore, we need to be made aware of that process. So alhamdulillah, decision has been made, has been supported across the board. So you can be confident, for those of you who follow Wifaqul Ulama and those of you who follow some of the work that I do, that alhamdulillah, Rajab has started. Al-Mubarak lana fi Rajab wa Sha'ban. And so, we make dua that Allah SWT blesses us in both Rajab and Sha'ban, and that He reaches us to Ramadan and make Ramadan successful for us. So we need to start making our preps now. In fact, if we carry on with our fiqh hour, then you will be present, inshallah, for the Sha'ban declaration, because you will probably be around the same sort of time. And inshallah, you may also be present here for the Ramadan declaration. So you will see our process for the next 2-3 months, and it should make you think that what process am I following at the moment? Is that process sound and thorough as to what I've witnessed right now, or is there no method whatsoever? So I leave those thoughts with you. And on that point, Jazakallah khairan for attending. Same time, same place tomorrow, inshallah. Wa akhiru da'wana and alhamdulillah rabbil alameen. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.